Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I'm well.
Good,
Well.
good. Awesome. Well, Tim, let's jump right into it. Over the weekend, I had one of our actual alumni and his wife were driving through the area. As you know, bought a new house, and anybody watching this on YouTube can see that I have a whole floor of the house, a basement, which is unusual, and I'm redoing it to my man cave. But they came over. They're coming through town, and they were actually dropping off a few things, gifts, which was super cool of them. And we ended up having a drink or two, and we got into some conversations, some deep conversations. And one of the conversation topics that came up is, what would others say is your biggest complaint? So what would you say, Tim, others would say your biggest complaint is?
It's a tough one. What would others say my biggest complaint is? So just to be clear, this is something that I complain about that they hear from me. I would
Correct.
say that I'm constantly okay. Oh God, I'm really struggling to answer this one. I'm thinking of probably if I asked you, it might be staff. If I asked Amelia, it might be, or it might have been around dieting.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. You should ask Amelia and see what she says. And the idea is to ask people around you and see. So, guys, if you're listening to this right now, this is a fun exercise to do. Is what is your biggest complaint? And the reason this becomes important. Yep, I'm still moving.
I feel like there's a caveat though, right? Imagine if you're not getting along with your partner or your wife, and you say, "Hey, what's my biggest complaint? Floodgates have been opened."
I think it's all how I disagree. I think it's all how you approach it, right?
True.
I think if you're in the energetic space, that what we teach about standing in your power, that's not an issue, right?
True,
Because you're not taking it personally. So if I tell you what your biggest complaint is and you believe it to be your biggest complaint and it triggers you, there's more work to be done in there. That means I've hit a very sensitive spot for you and you also believe it's true. So an example, Tim, if I said your biggest complaint was not having the car you want, right? You're like, yeah, doesn't affect you at all because that's not your complaint. It's not true. But if I hit something that's really sensitive to you, I say your biggest complaint is whatever it may be, and all of a sudden,
you can say it. I'd rather know. I don't know what my biggest complaint.
I know you would. That's why I'm not saying it. So,
or it's because I don't complain.
You don't complain at all. Never. And if you say that person's biggest complaint, so maybe I say your biggest complaint is about overwhelm or about time, right? You may say, well, excuses start just popping out immediately. Well, you notice, guys, when excuses start popping out immediately, you hit something sensitive, right? Even if you do it subliminally. So like, for example, for you, Tim, when I said your car, you had one thought, which was, I don't know, probably didn't phase you at all and just, no, that's not it. Doug must just be doing an example. Maybe it was different when I said time or overwhelm. I don't know, but you get the idea. So you can kind of self-check this with the idea that if you are getting triggered, right, then there's some reality with it. So if you're going to ask your partner, like Tim said, if you're going through a rough time, probably not the best time to ask, but if you choose to ask, and I did this when my wife and I were going through some rough times way back in the day, you got to be able to stand in your power and let it be like Teflon, right? Kind of like that Teflon. You can throw it against the wall. You could drive over it with your car and it just bounces right back. No matter what you do, you can't destroy it. And if you have that kind of energetic focus and positivity, you can really get some great insights, right? Because a lot of times what your spouse is going to tell you in this instance isn't maybe exactly your first complaint, but something they hear from you all the time. So Tim, during this exercise, I knew what mine was and everybody jumped on it, right? And agreed with me and said, oh yeah, I'm sure, everybody would agree with you. I know what my biggest complaint is, right? And it's something that I'm working on, but I knew it. And that level of clarity, I think, is also really important.
What is it?
how tired I am.
Oh, yeah.
I complain about it all the time. So tired. I got a baby, right? A new baby. So now it's not new, 6 months, but no sleep, all of these things. So that's my biggest complaint. It's often a story that I tell people, and I know it because I've had this conversation so many times about it. I'm lucky my wife is a great barometer for me. So when that
Mm.
question was asked to me at the table, I said, "Oh, how tired I am." And people piled on, "Oh yeah, absolutely. That's definitely your biggest complaint." And there was no question about it. But it also didn't bother me because I knew it, right? And I knew it but it did hit me. I'm not going to lie, it hit me. And since that conversation, I've made it such a point not to talk about sleep or tiredness, except for I told you I slept in today. But I haven't brought it up since to anybody, to my knowledge, because our complaints can be so ingrained in us, they become subliminal. Like we don't realize we're saying them as much, right? We don't realize we're talking about them as often. And you are gonna, as you said, you will have different complaints from different people, guys. And as you were saying, Tim, but generally there's a theme around the complaints in my practice where I've talked with guys. There's a theme around what they may be around. So lack of control, overwhelm, victimhood. All complaints are a level of victimhood to some degree because you're complaining about something that you don't have control over, right? You have some control, but somehow you feel it's out of your control in some way, hence it being a complaint, or a routine complaint. You would have taken care of it. So there's something that's interesting about that. So you can ask, to go back, you can ask your partner, just make sure you're ready for whatever she says, right? You may not hear what you want to hear in this situation. Um, and that's okay. If you're Teflon, just take that as data, right? It's like checking your P&L, right? It may not say what you want it to say, but it's data. And then now you go, okay, do I find that to be true? If the answer is yes, do I want to change it? I'll go through that whole questioning, Tim, that I do. Does this serve me? Yes or no? If it doesn't serve me, then I want to change it. How do I take massive action in that moment to actually change it, right? And do something about it? Or do I just want to keep complaining? Because that
Go
serves
for a
me in
nap.
some way. Well, because complaining serves you, right? You get something out of complaining.
Yeah, I said, well, just go for a nap.
Just go for a nap.
Uh,
uh, whole other stories can be told about that. But so when you look at that, what is your biggest complaint? So guys listening or watching this right now, ask yourself this, write this down. What is your biggest complaint? Write it. I encourage you to write it down and then go ask the 5, 10 people you spend the most time with, coworkers, staff, employees, your spouse, your kids, or what have you, depending, and see what they say and see if it matches up. Now, you may get a wide variety of answers. You may get people who are a little intimidated to really share it with you, so they may be a little softer. So I encourage you to dig deeply and make sure you create a very safe space, for people to answer you. And it's going to be telling if you can tell it's not a safe space for them, right? That you've maybe a little draconian in your ruling and the way you've dealt with things. But this is a great way to really see where your focus is, because your complaint is your focus. And we don't think about it that way, but it is. Because if you're choosing to complain about something often, that means you're focusing on it.
but
Me,
what?
go ahead.
Yeah, but what if though? Right, you ask somebody it's kind of like trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, right? Because what if you then started to ask somebody, "Hey, what's my biggest complaint?" And they then went to find what your biggest complaint is, even though you don't really complain about it often or even, much, whatever. Um, but you're asking, and now they're telling you something, and now you think you've got a problem that you actually never had.
Well, that's where you have to use your own wisdom and judgment. Just because somebody says something. So if you told me my biggest complaint was around money, example, right? I get to decide if that's true or not, right? Because it's not a complaint for me. So, I go, okay, maybe I've complained about money in the past, but that's not really something that triggers me. It's not true to me, right? That's not something that's true for me. So I get to make that decision. I, as a man, in my own, barometer, I am my own counsel in this case. Now I'm going to take the data and go, Okay, Tim's saying my biggest complaint is around money. Interesting. Tell me more about that. When do I complain about money? How often do I do it? Interesting. And I'm not going to do it aggressively. I'm going to do it like, that's really interesting. So I'm going to do what I call putting on my Indiana Jones hat. I'm going to go on an adventure and search for what's real here and make it fun. And if I make it fun, then I can draw more information out of you, the person who's telling me about my biggest complaint. And I can find some more insight. And it may turn out you go, yeah, I guess you don't. And now we get to have a dialogue. But I'm not going to ask somebody who doesn't spend a lot of time with me, who doesn't know me well, because that won't serve me. I'm going to ask the 5 to 10 people I spend the most time with. My wife is a perfect example, so I'm around her often. This other couple that was there, his wife, I don't spend a lot of time with, so she didn't have anything to contribute, right, to that. However, he did. And, and then it went on because we know mutual people, et cetera. And I knew the answer. So there was no question to me about what the biggest complaint is. So again, I'll go back to you, Tim, and hopefully this will help the listeners. If I say your biggest complaint is about you not having the car you want, you're just going to take it and be like, interesting. That's it. Like, that's not true for you. You may ask me like, when do I complain about the car? Oh, there was this time when you and Amelia were going out, and you'll know if it's been one time or more, right, or often. But it also rings true with you, and if you're in tune with yourself, you'll know pretty quickly if that's a good complaint, right? Do you know yourself or do you not? And most people don't, as you know. But this is the journey that we're on, right? This is the journey that we all get to be on, is getting to a greater depth of ourselves. And knowing this complaint, in my opinion and experience, will allow you to navigate muddy waters, right? It'll allow you to navigate things. So if you're having problems in your relationship, problems with your wife, right? This may be an area that you get to work on for yourself and your betterment of yourself to figure out what your complaint is, because your complaint is your focus. If I'm always saying I don't get enough sleep, my focus is that Doug does not get enough sleep. Ergo, that's going to make me more tired. My focus is on being tired, rather than my focus is on abundance of energy. My focus is on how much time I got. I got the Aura ring, as you know, Tim. And so now I can really track my sleep and see, okay, wait a minute, maybe I'm getting more sleep than I thought. So maybe it's something else that's making me tired. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's something else. Or maybe I'm just using tired as an excuse. As we said in the previous podcast, you talked about really checking or questioning your excuses, right? Then maybe that's what the issue is. Maybe I'm using it as an upper level issue. Maybe I'm not happy in my marriage. Maybe it's something else that's going on. But you get to start looking at the data. And part of the data is the words that come out of your mouth.
What did you just say? You get to start looking at the data. You get to start looking at the data. Wow. I didn't
Yes.
think I'd ever hear you say that. Wow.
Oh, yep.
Clearly, I've had an impression.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But, success leaves clues, but so do the words that come out of your mouth, right? I believe that thoughts become things. Thoughts become reality, right? If I tell myself, as an example, just to drive this home, if I tell myself every day how much of a loser I am, I start to believe it. I start to become it. We all know that to be true. We would never, if you had an employee who was always talking about themselves being a loser, then you would, quickly correct them, right? As a leader of your business, if it was a key employee that you cared about. Well, your complaints are the same thing, guys. There may be things. Are you complaining that you're too fat? Are you complaining you're tired, like I did, that you're not getting enough sleep? I would start our calls with, oh man, I've been up since 3:30 this morning. It was almost a badge of honor for me of not getting enough sleep, yet still powering through, right? So it becomes a story. So what is your biggest complaint? What is the thing you complain about? Not your biggest complaint. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. The thing you complain about the most. Now, I know you think it's staff. You think I would say it's staff, but I think you should ask Amelia, ask Arthur, for you, probably Johnny, right? People that you spend a lot of time with, and ask them, what do I complain about the most frequently? Not to the most depth, but the most frequent complaint.
I don't want to. The reason why I don't want to is because I don't feel like I complain a great deal. So I don't want to start getting feedback I know how I feel, right? I know if I feel good, if I feel in flow, or if I feel stressed out. And um, I don't feel stressed out. Um, and I also don't feel like getting feedback and adding something to my plate that might that I might not want on my plate right now. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you mean, but I think I would encourage you, since we're in this conversation now, I
Mhm.
would encourage you not just to ask for feedback, but take it just as feedback. It's not something you have to take on. It's not
True.
something you personally have to take that much weight on this conversation, right? It's just feedback. So, for
Mm.
example, Tim, if I asked you, you know, what's my biggest complaint? And you said that you don't want to check the spreadsheets or data for the powerful man, I could be like, yeah, cool. I'm good with it because I'm not checking them. you know, and I would be okay with it and I can move on. I have no emotional attachment to your answer, right? It's
Yeah.
engaged indifference. So if I approach it with engaged indifference, which is a great philosophy to do in life in general, but if I approach it with engaged indifference, I'm indifferent. I'm engaged with the conversation, but I'm indifferent at the outcome of the conversation and outcome of what you say. Then I can decide what I want to do, right? I can decide what I want to do here in the conversation. Now, you can
True.
certainly not have the conversation. That's possible. That's completely up to you, obviously. I would encourage the men listening to have the conversation. I would challenge you as much to have that conversation. It doesn't mean you have to put
Ooh.
something on your plate. It's just a conversation, just a topic. Um,
Ooh, okay, fine. You've challenged me a
I would
little bit.
also throw out there the possibility that you may not want to have the conversation because you may not want to hear what people have to say.
Really? You know that's not the
I'm not saying it's for you. I'm talking to the listener now.
oh, right. Okay, I thought you
Yeah.
were talking about me.
Not you. You're perfect in
Yeah,
every
for
way.
sure. Okay. If I can tell people that no, you're wrong, which I can, because you just
You
gave
don't
me.
have to tell them anything. Just take it in. It's a conversation. You can just listen and let them share and then go, okay, great. Take it in and let it go. That's again engaged indifference or that whole Teflon idea. You're not emotionally charged. The only way you'll get emotionally charged if it hits home and hits a trigger, right? That's the only way. If it rings really true with you, then you can get emotional about it and get charged. So again, I'll take it back to another analogy a lot of these guys will get, right? If your wife comes up to you and just says, "What's your biggest complaint?" is that you orgasm too early when we're having sex. That's going to set a lot of guys off. And the reason it's going to set them off is because it's going to be true. They know they're like, "Oh crap," and it's going to make them feel not man enough. If that's the complaint, right? However, however, if it doesn't, if you are the Don Juan in bed, you're the man in the bedroom and you're handling business left, right, and center, and she says that, you're just gonna laugh. You're gonna be, babe, you remember last night? That wasn't an issue, right? Can you still
Mm.
walk? Right? You're gonna be having,
Yeah.
but that's a different
You
response, right?
still walk.
Because you
That's
know it's not
funny.
true for you.
Ah,
The only way it's gonna affect you
depends on the position.
if you know it's true is if you know it's true. Uh,
Depends on the position.
absolutely. All right, guys. So what I'm going to conclude here with is, gentlemen, I'm going to challenge you, and Tim, I'll throw this out to you. And no, you guys, by the way, a challenge. You do not have to always accept the challenge. You can hide out. That's cool, but you don't have to always
Mhm.
accept them. But the challenge for you is to pick at least five people you're close to, a good friend of yours, maybe a coworker, definitely your wife, if you're in a decent situation there. And if you don't have a wife, you're separated, divorced, however, if you're in good communication, still reach out to them. But the five people you talk to the most and ask them, what do I complain about the most frequently? Just a fun question to have and take it lightly, right? Take it lightly. I didn't get upset when everybody told me what mine was. I knew what it was, and it was true, right? I did think, okay, this may be a bigger thing than I thought. I'm gonna change it, right? I'm gonna do something different. This gets to be the next evolution of Doug Holt, and that was important to me, and it may not be important to you, but I challenge you to do it. Bonus points. Bonus points if you go over to the Facebook group and post what your biggest complaint is below this podcast episode. Now, if you're you can do this on the YouTube. If you're on the YouTube watching this, I encourage you guys to go there as well and get it. But as always, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus and pick up your free bonus, a free training there, because that also may help get you some insight in this area. Tim, as always, thank you for your insights. Gentlemen,
Welcome.
Next time on The Powerful Man Show.